Okay, well, good morning, everyone. Welcome. We continue our John series, so the Gospel according to John. We're on chapter 18. We're starting the chapter, just the first 11 verses. And it's titled The Betrayal and Arrest of Jesus. So the first thing that we will do is we'll read the verses all together. They'll come on the screen soon. There we are. I'm reading on the ESV version, and then we can all read together. So when Jesus had spoken these words, he went out with his disciples across the brook Kidron, where there was a garden, which he and his disciples entered. Now Judas, who betrayed him, also knew the place, for Jesus often met there with his disciples. So Judas, having procured a band of soldiers and some officers from the chief priests and the Pharisees, went there with lanterns and torches and weapons. Then Jesus, knowing all that would happen to him, came forward and said to them, "Whom do you seek?" They answered him, "Jesus of Nazareth." Jesus said to them, "I am he." Judas, who betrayed him, was standing with them. When Jesus said to them, "I am he," they drew back and fell to the ground. So he asked them again, "Whom do you seek?" And they said, "Jesus of Nazareth." Jesus answered, "I told you that I am he. So if you seek me, let these men go." This was to fulfill the word that he had spoken, "Of those whom you gave me, I have lost not one." Then Simon Peter, having a sword, drew it and struck the high priest's servant and cut off his right ear. The servant's name was Malchus. So Jesus said to Peter, "Put your sword into its sheath. Shall I not drink the cup that the Father has given me?" Okay. So, Lord, we pray that you help us to understand and just get what you want us to get from these verses this morning. So let's start with the outline of what we're going to talk about. So Jesus is claiming to be God once again. I'll break that down for you, the implications of it, the power of it. And then he's offering a solution, which is substitutionary atonement. I'll explain what that is. So essentially saying, me in exchange for them. We'll talk about the cup of wrath, or the cup that he's saying he's going to take. The comfort we find in Peter, and the effect of all this. So let's start. So first, the implications. So we read that it said, "I am he." But the actual translation is just, "I am." So what is this "I am" name? So in Exodus 3, I think we also have it, when Moses is in the burning bush and dialoguing and speaking to God, it says, Moses said to God, "If I come to the people of Israel and say to them, 'The God of your fathers has sent me to you,' and they ask me, 'What is his name?' what shall I say to them?" God said to Moses, "I am who I am." And he said, "Say to these people of Israel, 'I am has sent me to you.'" So the name of God is "I am." This is an odd name. But think about it. It actually makes sense. We never use the to be verb without an object. We say, "I am this," or "I am that," or "I am because." But because God has no beginning nor an end, just "I am" is enough, because he's "I am." He's all things together. No beginning, no end, no because. So this is God's name. Now, one of the things that Jesus came to do when he came to the earth in the human form was to reveal more of that God to us, of that "I am." And in John chapter 14, verse 9, he said, "If you've seen me, you've seen the Father." So he came to reveal the Father to us, and we have Jesus' "I am" statements, which elaborate a little bit more on this "I am" name. So he said, "I am the bread of life," and what you need to sustain your life. "I am the light of the world," and what you need to actually see what's going on. "I am the door," or the gate of the sheep. "I am the good shepherd." I am the resurrection and the life. I am the way, the truth, and the life. I am the true vine. Jesus is expanding on what I am means. But more importantly, he's also saying, I am. He's saying, I am God incarnate. And he's been saying this through the Gospel of John several times, quite plainly. Two stand out to me. Chapter 8, he says, before Abraham was, I am. This is very strange because, of course, Abraham was dead by then. And in chapter 10, he also said, I'm laying down my life and I'll take it back up again. Who can do that but God? So he's been saying this several times, like, I am God. You need to get it. But this time, he's close to the end, really. And he's just being very explicit. He's saying, I am. Okay? He is claiming the divine name directly. And the implications are huge because you cannot have a mild response to Jesus because he is claiming to be God himself. Okay? He is doing something that no other founder of a major religion has done ever. Okay? So they were prophets, they were enlightened people, but none of them claimed to be God. They came to show you what the way to God was. Like, if you do this and you do that, you'll find God. If you do this or you do that, you'll find enlightenment. But none of them say, like, I am God himself. Jesus is very different. Jesus is saying, yes, I am God, coming to find you. Not telling you the way to find God, like, I'm God, here I am, and I'm chasing after you. This is completely different. Our modern thinking says that all religions are equal, all religions are good because they serve a purpose and a human need. And you choose whichever one works for you. The problem with this is that if Jesus really is who he said he is, therefore so he is God, then the Christian religion has to be a superior religion. And if it's not, it has to be an inferior religion. But there's no like all religions equal. This is no intolerance. It's just basic logic. I'll unpack this. So in our day and age, we have this common perception of Jesus was a good moral teacher and a philosopher, and his teaching have value. For instance, the golden rule. But he claimed to be God himself. Like, you cannot have two things. Like, the problem with this position is that it has no logical or intellectual integrity. I'll put it this way. This is a very stark comparison, but it makes sense. Charles Manson, complete nutter. He claimed to be God or God sent. And he's not the only one in history who, in great delusion, has claimed to be God. Have you ever heard someone say, well, Charles Manson had some good teachings? No, you haven't heard that. He was insane. So, if Jesus is God, you have to surrender your life and build your entire life around him and embrace all his teachings, not some of it, absolutely everything. If he is not God, if he's not who he says he is, you shouldn't want to have anything to do with him or any of his teachings because he's a lunatic of megalomaniac proportions. So it's either or. There's no like, oh yeah, he has some good things to say, and yeah, sometimes he claimed to be God, but, no. He's either God or he is not. So there's no in-between reaction to him. And that's a question that you need to answer yourself. Do I believe Jesus to be God or not? And if you do, you should fall to your knees and love him and give your life completely and build absolutely everything you do and everything you are around him and listen to what he has to say. And if he's not, then fine, that's your decision, but also be logical and consistent with it and don't say, oh, he was a good moral teacher. This is not the most shocking part of the text, okay? We'll keep going. So the power of it, okay? This is kind of the evidence, okay? Let's see the actions backing up this allegation of Jesus saying that he is God. How many times I've read past this and kind of ignore it a bit? But not this time. Let's break it down. I'm going to drink a little bit of this, sorry. Okay, first thing happens. Judas goes and procures a band of soldiers. Okay, the word band is also translated into a detachment, which is a Greek formal word to specify a group of Roman soldiers of at least 200 in size. Okay, so he goes and gets himself at least 200 Roman soldiers, some priest officers from the temple. So these are battle-hardened, no-nonsense type of guys. These are soldiers that have been at war, and they're there to get job done. This is to apprehend an alleged criminal and his followers, okay? Jesus engaged with them when they come with weapons and torches, and ask them, what are you looking for? And they say, Jesus of Nazareth, and he says, I am, okay? The next thing we read happening is they draw back and fall to the ground. What's that? Like, think about it. 200 soldiers, okay? Really tough guys, been at war. And Jesus just said, Jesus is a teacher, a rabbi. He said, in his clothes, I am. And boom, knocked on the ground. What's happening? This is very strange. Well, this is the power of God. Like, he's just, at that moment, he's revealing himself, and just a tiny little bit of his power he allows to pass through, and these guys cannot keep their footing. They just lose it. They just fall to the ground. There's nothing else they can do. They cannot help it. So imagine the scene, like all this room full of soldiers, and Jesus says, yeah, I am. Boom, to the ground, completely unable to stand. Don't you see what he's doing? He's letting them know, you are not taking me. Like, I am laying down my life. Why are you not taking me? Because you can't. You cannot even stand in the presence of God. You cannot keep your footing. You strong Roman soldiers cannot even stand in my presence, let alone take me to a cross. We'll see further down the line a dialogue with, I lost it. Roman prefect? Pilate. He's dialoguing with him and say, okay, you are taking me because this is the will of God, not because you can. If I wanted to resist, we wouldn't be having this conversation. We'll see some examples of this reaction in the Old Testament. So in Ezekiel 1, when he's in the presence of God, he falls to his face. Second Chronicles 5, when the priest is ministering in the presence of God, the priest could not stand to minister. Luke 5, when Peter realizes that Jesus is God and he's done this amazing miracle, he cannot stand, he falls at Jesus' feet. And in Isaiah 6:5, he claims in the presence of God, like, I'm becoming undone, like, I'm coming apart in God's presence. So this is nothing new. This has happened before. And the reason that this happens is because there is an incompatibility between the divine purity and man's egotism. We'll see this when we see both the example of Isaiah and Peter. What this means is that we become acutely aware of how inadequate we are to stand in the presence of God. Look at this. When Isaiah is in the presence of God, he says, I am a man of unclean lips. Depart from me. When Peter is in the presence of Jesus and realizes that he's God, he says, depart from me, for I am a sinful man, O Lord. So what's happening to Isaiah? What's happening to Peter? They're in God's presence. Suddenly, they're just like, I'm not adequate to be in your presence. I'm not good enough. Like, I'm a man of unclean lips. I'm a sinful man. Like, look at me. Like, no, this is not right. Is it because our self-image, unfortunately, is based on performance, either good or bad? Like, I'm strong, I'm good at this, I make X amount of money, I'm smart. Or the other side of the coin, I'm stupid, I'm unintelligent, I'm weak. Both reflect our obsession with ourself. And Augustine of Hippo, I think I'll go next slide, maybe. No? No next slide? No? No, that one. Oh, I missed Bono. Let's skip Bono. I'll mention it at the end. Next one? I forgot about Bono. So this phrase. So Augustine of Hippo wrote incurvatus in se, which means that our nature, by the corruption of the first sin, is deeply curved in on itself. That means that we're essentially obsessed with ourselves. We think about ourselves too much, whether good or bad. We're constantly thinking about ourselves. We're kind of curved in on ourselves. So we have an old illustration, a painting of someone just looking at themselves, a more contemporary one, someone taking a selfie, and a more mathematical way of expressing it, if you prefer that. But essentially, we are obsessed with self. And when we go into God's presence, which is the opposite of that, it's just incompatible. How do you feel when you get fired for poor performance? When you get rejected because you're just not good enough? You feel bad. Like when you're looking for a job and you get constant letters of rejection to your applications, you cannot help but to feel like, man, that hurts. It just feels bad. And that is because we don't want to acknowledge it, but we build our identity around, I'm good at this or I'm good at that. And when someone just tells you like, actually, you're not that good. Or even worse, when you're in the presence of someone that is much better than you at something that you thought you were good at, it's a bit traumatic. Look, let's say, I don't know, the gym, lifting weights. You go there, you pick up your 15-kilo dumbbells, and you're like, oh yeah, like, I'm strong. And then along comes a guy just picks 50 on each. And he just starts, and you're like, man, I'm rubbish. Or something else. You just feel bad. You want to get away. Okay, I'm going to change machines. Yeah, that's what I do, essentially. Just go somewhere else and hide. Yeah. Just like, oh, I've been working for 2 hours. Oh, well, time for rest. Now think about Judgment Day, okay? This is you in the presence of God. What do you think is going to happen? How do you think you're going to feel? If you cannot even stand to someone that's so much better than you, what's going to happen to your identity built around all this stuff when you actually will be judged according to what we have done? So Judgment Day is one of the most marvelous promises in the Bible, but also one of the most terrifying. And I'll tell you why it's the most wonderful. I think next slide should work. Yes. So it is the most wonderful because if Judgment Day is right, then all will be made right, okay? And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, behold, the dwelling place of God is with man. He will dwell with them, and they will be his people, and God himself will be with them as their God. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and death shall be no more. Neither shall there be mourning, nor crying, nor pain anymore, for the former things have passed away. This is wonderful news. This is one of my favorite verses in the Bible, and actually it keeps me going because there will be a day where there will be no more pain. And yes, I look forward to that. But on the other hand, it also says that we'll all be judged according to our deeds. How are you going to be able to stand in that judgment? What are you going to say to God? What about if we just end there, keep your nose clean, don't get into trouble, and all the best for Judgment Day? That's it. See you next. Have a lovely week. That'll be terrible news, isn't it? Well, the story doesn't end there, because after Jesus is revealing his deity, these people are not able to stand. He does something else. They eventually stand. He lets them. They stand up, and he says, like, if you're looking for me. Let these men go. Protocol was arrest the leader, but also arrest the followers. End with it. But he says, take me instead of them. And at that time, the disciples are representing the believers at that time. There weren't that many. Not the only ones, but they're representing that. And that's the same thing that Jesus says to us. Take me instead of them. Take me instead of you. He's about to do something. So he is being a substitution. He's saying like, no, you take me. Don't take them. For what? He speaks to Peter and says, I'm going to drink the cup. What is this cup? So the cup in the Old Testament almost always symbolizes the wrath of God, his judgment, his justice coming down on people. 3 examples are Psalm 75:8, Isaiah 55:17, and Jeremiah 25:15 and 17. Substitution. To be honest, I thought about this, and there's not that many examples in my life when someone has kind of sacrificed themselves so I could do something. I guess my mom, worked hard so I could have an education, and that's some sort of sacrifice. But this is more like when you've done something wrong, and someone say like, you know what, like, I'll take the blame so you can go. So you can go and have a life. I'll go to prison for you. And if something like that happens, I don't think you can live a second of your life, especially that you don't think about the sacrifice that that person did for you. Because without that sacrifice, you wouldn't be able to live what you're living right now. There are a couple of films, well, actually there's loads of films with these images. Recently saw one called The Holdovers, where the teacher kind of essentially takes on the blame. So this student is not sent to military academy and is able to stay in the school and therefore have a better life. I'm not proud of liking this film, but Armageddon, when Bruce Willis essentially just sacrifices himself and he stays behind so everyone else could leave. Again, there's not a minute that goes into the people's lives that they don't remember that sacrifice, because you are living because of his sacrifice. A more contemporary example, Iron Man, dying as well, giving his life so everyone else could live. And there's just countless examples. But the point is the following. If someone does that for you, every single minute of your life that you live, you have that in your mind. You're like, wow, I wouldn't be able to see my child walking or just laughing or seeing his smile or enjoying this meal if it wasn't for the sacrifice of that person. Well, the same happens to us, and that's exactly what Jesus did. And with regards to, you say, well, but I've been a fairly good person most of my life. And I get it, the seriousness of sin is hard to grasp. But what helps me to understand the seriousness of sin is to see the solution, not the problem, because I just cannot get head around the problem. Okay, why is God so worried about if I lied or something? He didn't kill anyone. But look at the solution. Okay, so you have a problem that you don't know is in a black box, but you have a detailed understanding of the solution. So Jesus had to die. So he had to go to the cross and suffer all this. And I'll expand a little bit on that. He wasn't only physically tortured. He didn't only, was thirsty for hours in a very uncomfortable position that is a cross, physically suffocating, unable to breathe. So physically very hard. But also spiritually, it's terrible, because do you remember what he said on the cross? He said, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? That was the most painful part of the cross, that separation between the Father and the Son, that he had to suffer because he was bearing our sins. So that was the solution. So God had to put his Son through that. And if you think about it, if you have children, you would rather do those things yourself than to let your children do it. So even more painful, because your child is suffering. So that was the solution. It was pretty drastic. So the problem must be equally big. And that is the way in which I approach the seriousness of sin. So whenever I sin, I don't say like, well, it's not too bad. The consequences are not that bad. Actually, my sin, the solution to that sin was the death of the Son of God on a cross, and that separation between the Father and the Son. So it is serious. It is important, because that was the solution. And Jesus willingly went and drank that cup for you and for me in substitution, saying, Father, take me and do not take them. So on final judgment, we'll be able to stand, not on our own, because we cannot even stand in his presence. We'll come apart, we'll become undone, we'll fall to the ground. It's only because he went to the cross and he's that substitution for us. You may say like, okay, wow, this is something big to take. And I've been a Christian for years and I still don't get it. I still don't behave in accordance to that. I still, fail and make mistakes. And even though I know that Jesus went to the cross, I still sin. It's like, so frustrating. Well, there is also encouragement in Peter. There will be more encouragement in Peter next week, you'll see. But there's encouragement here because he messes up like quite quickly on a short amount of time. Just to show that, like, can you get worse than that? And look at Jesus' reaction. So he's been walking with Jesus, physically walking with God, okay? So this is like on a daily basis for just over 3 years. And he's heard Jesus talk and talk over and over about he having to go to the cross and die and give his life. But he refuses to get it. He's like, not my watch. You're not going to the cross. I'll go first. And Jesus is like, depart from me, Satan. No. And even at this point, imagine, Jesus just prostrated a full detachment of Roman soldiers on the ground, and Peter's coming with his tiny sword, and, just cut the ear of one of the servants, not even one of the soldiers, okay? They probably would have been able to dodge the blow. And Jesus is like, you know what, soldiers? I changed my mind, take him. You could have said that, He's just like, come on, Peter, how many times? Doesn't do that. He turns and talks to him. We were talking about, God being tender and kind. He could have said like, poof, Peter evaporates. It's like, I've had enough of this guy. I've got another, 10 spares. Didn't do that. Turns to him and instructs him and explains what he must do. Says, put away your sword. This is not the way. Don't you see? Like, they're not taking me, I'm giving myself away. So despite how many years you worked with the Lord, despite whether you have a solid grasp of the gospel or not, despite your mistakes, despite your stupidity, and mine too, I'm not saying just you, like us, the Lord loves us, and he will not disown us. He said, like, I'm not going to lose any of this that you have given me. I'm just not. So it does not depend on your ability to hold on to God. It just depends on the fact that he's got a solid grasp on you. Now, just to conclude, what is the effect of all this? How does this affect our lives on a practical way? Let's try and break this down. So the judge, he comes down to drink the cup of justice. So he comes and takes on the punishment what you deserve. So he substitutes himself. So he puts himself in your position so you can be in his position. Despite of your lack of understanding and correct application of the gospel on a daily basis, still loves you, still gave his life for you, like he did for Peter. I'm not going to spoil next week, but he also did something that was terrible, and even then, Jesus still went to the cross for him. If God is for you, who can be against you? So this is the concept. So God is constantly chasing after you. If nothing can separate us from the love of God, Why don't we just abide in this reality and let this percolate through our whole being and affect us in the way we live? When someone criticizes us, when we don't get the job, when someone says, you're not good enough, who cares? Really, who cares? Fine, I'm not good enough. But on Judgment Day, I'll be able to stand. Do you know what that means? You'll be able to stand. How long do you think you're going to live? These are my conversations with my wife before I come to church. Well, I'll probably live like maybe 44 years, tops. So I'll die between today and 44 years, roughly. I'm 36, and so it's like 80 years. That's a lot for my generation and all the stress and everything. 44 years is not that much. And remember, I could die any moment from now till that. See, someone says something about me, or if I find myself like, well, you know, I've been rejected for this or that, doesn't matter. Like, seriously, the biggest problem you had, being able to stand when the Lord comes in his presence, you coming undone, that incompatibility, that tendency that you have to think so much on yourself, whether it's good or bad, that obsession we have with self, it's been dealt with because someone is taking the blame for you. Someone's drank the cup. So we could say, like, he drank a bitter cup so you can drink a sweet one. And you think, well, my life here is, you know, it's great living in the reality of it, but your eternity, that's the real price. So I really want to pray that the concept of, like the hymn says it is well with my soul, whether my life is being good or is absolutely terrible, it is well with my soul because Jesus has dealt with that. He's able to see deep into our hearts and that we can live every single moment of our lives in the light of that sacrifice, just knowing that every single good thing that we can enjoy today and all the amazing things that we'll enjoy in eternity are for that single sacrifice of Jesus on that cross. Because he said, take me instead of them. So Jesus, we thank you profoundly for saying that and for doing that. And we pray that you help us to just enjoy and live in the reality that you've given yourself for us. You were not taken away. It wasn't the will of men. It was you willingly going to that cross for me, for every person here in this room, for every believer in the entire world and in the entire history. So we will be able to stand when we're in your presence. And because of that, we look forward to that day when everything will be made right, where there will be no pain, no tears. That's our heritage. That's our gift for us, if we want to take it. If we realize that you are the great I am. Thank you, Lord. Amen.